Hi, I'm TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast, and I ask that you like, share, and comment on this video. Thanks for watching. All I gotta say is, who dat?
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. Hope everyone had a great weekend. And to all my mothers out there that's watching this right now, I want to wish you happy Mother's Day, belated. I hope that you had a really good Mother's Day weekend. I want to get started. I want to give a special shout out to my mom, Miss Carolyn Jones-Smith, of course. Some of you probably see her pop up in the chat from time to time, but she's always watching the show. Just want to let my mom know that I love her very much. Those that follow the show know how much my mom means to me. She's very, very important. Probably wouldn't even be as good at public speaking if it wasn't for her. And I definitely get my creative abilities from her. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to say that I love her. And this show is dedicated to you as well as my beautiful wife, Ashley, who I spent yesterday with, had a good time. Did a little barbecuing, got a little barbecue ribs, barbecue chicken on the grill for her. Because it was something that she wanted, but she's an extraordinary woman as well. So want to wish them a happy Mother's Day, which I did yesterday, but also just wanted to acknowledge them on today. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about rookie minicamp. Rookie minicamp kicked off a couple of days ago, and it was extremely exciting to see some promising guys that are going to help the New Orleans Saints team reach the next level. We all know about the Saints' first-round pick, Brian Bursey, coming out of Clemson, looked apart. He's a guy that has a high motor. Should be interesting to see him, take on, stiff competition as, time goes on, and also get acclimated to the defense. A few people that talked to the media was Isaiah Fauske. He's the second-round pick. Fauske comes out of Notre Dame, a lot of cachet. And one thing that we like about Isaiah Fauske is the fact that, he's part of that new age hybrid type defensive end group that I constantly talk about here on the show. And the media asked Isaiah a little bit about that versatility. And could that have been the deciding factor to get him drafted by the Saints?
I feel like that's me, but like in this defense, I still can go inside. I'm 270 now, going inside. I can play that. I can come off the edge, still show off speed off the edge with the read options, stuff like that. But it shows off my athleticism.
Was that maybe one of the things you brought to the table that not every defensive end could bring, is that you can run down a Jalen Hurts style quarterback?
Yeah, definitely. That's just my style of the game. I'm chasing down quarterbacks all the time, just showing my versatility and like always trying to get to the ball every single play.
So as you can see, man, I mean, he's part of that new hybrid defensive end edge rusher that I love. And I constantly talk about here on the State of the Saints podcast. He's a guy who had 6 forced fumbles in college. Reminds me a lot of DeMarcus Ware. DeMarcus Ware was really, really smart when it came to the pass rushing. Even if he couldn't get to the quarterback exactly, putting him on the ground, he always had his arm out to try to knock the ball out of his hands. So I see a lot of that in Fauske. Of course, only time will tell. I like the fact that he decided to balloon up a little bit to 270. Doesn't really look like it, of course. I mean, he packed on a little bit of muscle, I think, at the start of the draft. I think he was maybe like 260, 262, if I'm not mistaken. And I actually seen him in person. I mean, he's a very, put together guy. So him adding on that 270 just tells you everything that you need to know. He's definitely trying to go on a hunt to try to take down these quarterbacks. But of course, speaking of quarterbacks, we got to talk about Fresno State quarterback, now New Orleans Saints quarterback, Jake Haener. Jake Haener came out of college, out of Fresno State, completing 72% of his passes, had 20 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions on last season. And of course, his accuracy, his height, and some of his ability is being mirrored and being compared to that of Saints legendary quarterback Drew Brees. Jake Haener was asked about that, and has he reached out to Drew Brees, and what kind of relationship he has with him?
And I talked to him in January, got to meet him, sat there with him for a few hours, watched some tape with him. But, you know, Drew's a legend here, and obviously Drew is Drew. So
I like that little awkward smile at the end. But shouts out to Jake Haener. I like the answer to this. You know, it shows a little bit of the confidence that he has in himself. He's basically saying, Drew is Drew, and I'm me. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, Jake Haener is a guy who I feel like if he was probably a little bit taller, he probably was a baller. You know what I'm saying? You know, but no, seriously, if Jake Haener was a little bit taller, you know, I think he probably would have went maybe like late first, early second round. I mean, I think that's the only knock that they had on him. Watching him at the combine spin it, you know, he's not the guy with the strongest arm in the world, but what he does really well is put the ball where it needs to be. And that's what wide receivers really want, you know, and if he can actually learn the playbook and develop, I think that he can be a really good quality quarterback. Now, I'm not going to say that he's going to be a starting quarterback, and I get it. The high completion percentage, being 6 feet tall, you know, all these things that look and sound like Drew Brees. And I think that sometimes Saints fans, we get enamored with guys that have those measurables, and we just are looking for the next Drew Brees. I don't know if this guy could be Drew Brees. I don't even know if he can be a starter. But if he can put it all together, he can definitely have a career in the National Football League. And if you just so happen to not be able to start, I mean, there are a lot of good backup quarterbacks in the league that have carved out a niche at being a backup quarterback. Guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick, guys like Chase Daniel, right? Guys like the McCown brothers. They have made a career out of being backup quarterbacks. And when they come into the game, you know, they go out there and they're able to put things together for 3 or 4 games until the starter comes back. So I don't have an issue with Jake Haener. The sky's the limit for him. If he can put it all together, he probably could be a quality starter. And that's something that you definitely want in case somebody goes down. And then also, if, you know, Jameis decides that he wants to go and try to be a starting quarterback somewhere else next year, you can have somebody like Jake Haener to wait behind a guy like Derek Carr. And if something was to happen to Derek, Haener can come in and give you some level of production. But let's talk a little bit about Kendre Miller, the 3rd round draft pick coming out of TCU, was a battering ram, a guy who wasn't afraid to inflict some punishment, and also a guy that wasn't afraid, you know, to do some things, you know, at TCU that we haven't seen in a long time, probably since LaDainian Tomlinson was there. You know, some of the big runs that he had there. Unfortunately, he ended up getting hurt in a semifinal game versus the Michigan Wolverines in the college football playoffs. And that is one of the main reasons why Kendre Miller did not take part in rookie minicamp. He was kind of off to the side. But he did talk a little bit about that. He talked about his health and how long would it take for us to actually see him on the field?
I feel great. You know, I feel great. But, you know, the doctors, I kind of got to, you know, tone it down, be like, you're not ready for that yet. But that's just the competitiveness in me. And so, yeah.
What's kind of the target day? Like training camp maybe? Or?
Yeah. Expect to be ready by training camp.
All right, so Kendre Miller not too concerned about it. He definitely feels like he's on track, and he definitely feels like he's going to be ready for training camp, and that's what we want to see. Also, I encourage everybody to check out NewOrleansSaints.com, or you can go to the New Orleans Saints YouTube channel. Shouts out to them for putting together all this stuff. But, you know, Kendre Miller also talked a little bit about, catching the ball out of the backfield, something that he didn't really do out of TCU, and the fact that he can do it. And he's embracing the fact that the New Orleans Saints are going to give him the opportunity to do that. What we've seen from Kendre Miller, the ability to be able to run in between the tackles, always, absorbing the first blow, getting yards after contact. If you can add on the pass catching element, it's going to be dangerous in New Orleans, because this guy can be something extremely special. And I think a lot of draft boards had him ranked really, really high. And I think he would have been even higher if that injury didn't happen in the college football playoff. But he's a guy that can come in, that can give you some level of production. But if you add on pass catching out of the screen game and running some of these routes, it's going to be dangerous, man. Speaking of a dangerous man, let's talk about A.T. Perry, Wake Forest wide receiver, got drafted in the 6th round by the New Orleans Saints, a guy that came in, did some really good things, in college, broke all type of records at Wake Forest. He's a guy that doesn't shy away from being confident, man. A.T. Perry talked to the media about him being, well, a baller.
I'm a playmaker. I'm a baller, I'm here for a reason. I feel like God brought me here for a reason, so I'm happy with it. I'm excited to be here and just show everybody what I can do. So
I really don't understand how A.T. Perry lasted as long as he did in the draft. You look at some of these eye-popping stats that he had. I mean, I really just don't understand why, he dropped so far in the draft. I mean, you look at the numbers, you look at the number of touchdowns, you look at the fact that he was almost an unstoppable force at Wake Forest. But I think Saints fans are excited about him because, there's a level of concern about Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas has not played in 2.5 years, a complete season in 2.5 years. And when you have a guy that's kind of similar in the skill set, you're kind of relying on him to possibly be able to fill that void in case something was to happen to Michael Thomas. Now, A.T. Perry did some good things at minicamp, according to some of the people that I talked to that were down there. Shouts out to the Saints media. He did some good things, but he also had like some growing pains, which is understandable at the time. You're a rookie. I'm pretty sure you're nervous. This is the first time you put on the black and gold. You put on your gold helmet. I mean, the fact that you're walking out to the practice field as a professional, this is a moment that you've been waiting for your entire life. And finally, you get this opportunity to go out there and show the world what you can actually do. It can be a little bit nerve-wracking. So I don't expect A.T. Perry to be a guy that we're just looking at like, why the Saints drafted him. I think that as time goes on, I think that he's going to build up confidence. I think that he's going to be a guy that can come in, that can give you some level of production. I still feel like he's going to have to climb the ranks. I expect Olave to get a lot better. I expect for Shaheed to get a lot better. I'm not expecting Michael Thomas to be dealing with some of the things that he's been dealing with over 2.5 years. And you have some guys that you can compete with, guys like Kurt Merritt, Dejon Dixon, Quan Baker, some Traquan Smith. These are the guys that he's going to have to compete with to maybe get some playing time. So hopefully, A.T. Perry can go out there and show people what he can actually do. And if he can put it all together, I can see him slowly climbing up the depth charts in no time. But those are a few guys that actually spoke to the media. There are several more. Make sure you go to the YouTube channel of the New Orleans Saints if you want to check out more of the videos. Brian Bresee, he talked to the media, of course, but it was kind of like just a minute long. And it was, with all due respect, it was kind of basic stuff that we already know, learning the playbook. Wasn't too much that was in depth. Not too many questions that was really asked about him as a person versus some of these other guys that may be dealing with some things. Brian Bresee, I think he feels very, very confident about what he is and who he is as a player. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can actually do. Anybody that's been following Brian Bresee's story, the fact that he lost his 15-year-old sister, him dealing with some of the injuries with his ACL, it's not hard to be able to want to root for a guy like this. And, the fact that we know that he has a high motor and the energy that comes with him should be a very, very dangerous man. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do as time go on, and also being able to get to know him as he starts to develop into the pro that we know he can be. Later on in the show, once again, we're going to have college football and NFL analyst Mike Detier on the show. He'll be here later on to talk to us a little bit about Saints football, also some of these rookies. Anybody that knows Mike Detier know he's a really good storyteller. One of my favorite people to interview, no doubt about it. Always comes in very, very candid with his time, and looking forward to speaking with him about what the Saints can do in 2023. But in the meantime, I'm going to answer some of your questions and read some of your comments. We're going to go ahead and we'll start with We'll start with Mr. Houdat All Day 504. Says, I hope Haener is the gem, like how Purdy was for the Niners. I most definitely don't wish injury on anyone, but I just hope he's one of those ones. Well, look, I think that he has really good qualities. I often say that guys that come into the league that come in, have high completion percentage, high football IQ, they have a chance to really make a football team. They have a chance to go out there to possibly start. I don't know about starting every game or being all pro or being an MVP candidate, but you still have an opportunity to go out there and shine and do some of the things that you need to do in order for you to play consistently. Jake Haener, he checks all those boxes, but I don't want people to fall into the trap of wanting him to do well because of his measurables and his comparisons to Drew Brees. I mean, it's just two different people that we're talking about here. Now, does he have the qualities to be a solid quarterback? Yes. Great quarterback? I don't know about that, right? But all in all, he plays for the New Orleans Saints, which is our favorite team, which is the team that I cover. We want him to do well, right? And you definitely want him to do well because you know for a fact more than likely that Jameis Winston is not going to be here next year because Jameis Winston believes that he does not need to be a backup quarterback. And if you're going to lose a guy like Jameis, you want to replace him with somebody that you can count on that's a solid quarterback. Maybe Jake Haener is that guy, but I'm interested to see. I mean, the qualities that come with him, you know, I think that it's a recipe for success. If something was to happen to your starting quarterback, I'm not going to say it's the recipe for success. Oh, he comes in, he dominates. It's a Russell Wilson, Matt Flynn type story or something. No, I don't see that. But if something was to happen to Derek Carr, I'm knocking on wood when I say this, you can have a guy like Jake Haener come in and maybe you can win some football games, come up with an offensive package that can get him, winning some games for you if something was to happen to Derek Carr. So there you go. He's a stud of a receiver, says John. Yeah, he is a stud of a receiver. I like his possession skills. He's not one of those guys that just gonna, burn you, with his speed. He's a solid wide receiver. He's fundamentally sound. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know we want the burners, we want the Hollywood Browns, we want the Zay Flowers, we want those guys that can flash, run 4.2, 4.3, get us all excited and stuff like that. And that's cool. But the fundamentally sound wide receivers are the ones that I really truly respect because to me, you got to be smarter than some of those flashier receivers. Because if you're not that fast, right, you're not the fastest person. You can't take the top off the defense. You're not going to burn a cornerback. You're not going to get behind them. You got to be able to use some of your skills. You got to use your footwork. You got to use your hands. You got to use your body. You got to use all those things in order for you to be able to win those matchups. That's why when people talk about Michael Thomas and they say, oh, Michael Thomas, he only run this, that, and the third, you got to think about Michael Thomas, not the fastest wide receiver in the world, but if you throw the ball in the vicinity, he's catching it. And he's going up against guys that are faster than him, probably got a better vertical leap than he does, but he still manages to win those matchups. And how does that happen? It happens because the way that you train, the way that you develop yourself, the fact that you understand your limitations. So I don't think people fully understand. When you have a fundamentally sound wide receiver that's not as fast as others, and you're seeing them out there getting it, that's a testament to how great they are. Seriously, because it is extremely hard to go out there when you're not the fastest guy in the world and win your matchups over and over and over again. So I'm looking at A.T. Perry. He checks all the boxes. I still, feel like he needs to work a little bit on some of that footwork, but when you throw the ball in his vicinity, he's going to catch it. But I want to introduce our guest at this time. You can check him out on WWL along with Bobby Bear, guy who's been on the show quite a few times. One of the best storytellers that I know, and very knowledgeable football. One of my favorite people to talk to. I'm talking about Mr. Mike Detier. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, TJ.
Hey, I'm not just saying that because you're here. I really mean it.
Well, I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. We were talking a little bit about rookie mini camp. The New Orleans Saints kicked off, this past weekend. we were talking a little bit about A.T. Perry. You know, the Saints moved up in a draft. They even moved Adam Troutman to get him to move up to get this Wake Forest wide receiver. Mike, in your opinion, what do you think about A.T. Perry? Do you think that he has the capability to possibly fill a void if something was to happen to a player like Michael Thomas?
Well, he's a big receiver. And the one thing you see on film, because I get this time of year, you looking for context, okay? Mm-hmm. But you can't tell a heck of a lot off of one mini camp. That's a walkthrough with pajamas and slippers. But, I mean, I get it. Unique content today. But with AT, what you see is a lengthy receiver. He has excelled in going up and making contested catches. Mm. He's not the fastest guy around, but he does have a little burst toward the end of that route, and he goes up and makes a play. The one thing, and listen, I've seen it with other receivers. Mm-hmm. He's almost good for one drop early in the game. Mm. If you watched him at Wake Forest, which I have virtually every game, he'll have an easy drop. It's almost like, okay, I got to get it out of my system early. Okay. And so he'll maybe misread a route or tries to run with it a little bit before he makes the catch. But normally he's a real sure-handed guy. He'll go up and make that grab. And like every college wideout, there's some footwork and design issues as a route runner that you have to improve on. Right. You can be a good route runner in college, but you're only doing what they ask you to do for their system. Now you in the NFL, they're asking you to do something else. So you have to adjust there. I like him as a prospect. And again, his size, he is normally sure-handed. Right. And the other part is he can make a play with arms and hands around him, which I really like, especially red zone, short yardage situations where when you get in that red zone, man, everything is so condensed that you're trying to get a matchup there that's favorable to you. So I'm anxious to watch him and really anxious to watch him in the more physical practices and in games.
Right. Yeah. I think that I watched him at Wake Forest like quite a bit, you know, a couple of games. And I mean, he definitely stands out. And I definitely agree with you, you know, when it comes to like his possession skills, especially like in the red zone. I think that's something that the Saints need, you know, especially like when Michael Thomas went down. I mean, that was a huge void that he had, you know, that they had, you know, because they didn't have that one guy that can actually win it. Like you look at the first game of the season last season versus the Atlanta Falcons. Jameis Winston was basically just throwing the ball up and just hoping Michael Thomas catches it. And, you know, Michael Thomas came down with it. When he left, it was hard for the Saints to be able to convert in the red zone because they didn't have their receiver. So hopefully a guy like A.T. Perry can come in, you know, if something was to happen to Mike T, that he can actually step in. And also, even if Michael Thomas is there, he can also provide, you know, that red zone threat still. You know, I want to see what he can actually do all around. I still feel like he's a work in progress nonetheless. But let's talk about the first pick that the Saints selected in the first round, Brian Bresee. I had opportunity to check you all out during your draft coverage, and I know there was a little bit of back and forth in the room about Brian Bresee as a defensive tackle. Mike, in your opinion, did the Saints get better at the interior with the drafting of Brian Bresee?
Okay, with Brian, it's obvious you got a really big defensive tackle. He's athletic. He runs the field extremely well, east-west, and he's got some power skills. Here's the negative, and this is not his fault, but it's what he was asked to do at Clemson. He was always slanted or shaded one side or another, and they moved him around constantly. Okay, he's not doing that in the NFL. Okay, you're not sort of cocked one way and cocked the other way and then moved around. So there is some technique work that he's going to have to get much better at.
Right.
But you were only doing what Clemson wanted you to do. Secondly, it's just something, I've done this 37 years. And Greg Cosell always tells me, Mike, you're a stickler for a couple of things, and this is one of them. And he said, I really can't argue. A high cut defensive tackle. He's got a lot of legs on him.
Yeah.
A lot, which means you have to be protective of that. And also you have to learn how to play with a little lower base and come off the line of scrimmage a little lower. Low man wins.
Yeah.
People, I don't like a 6'1" defensive tackle. Hey, give me a talented one every day. You know why? That 6'3", 6'4" center guard, he got trouble getting under a 6'1", 6'2" guy.
Right.
So for Brian, the biggest challenge is going to be for him to learn how to play with a lower base and get off the line of scrimmage lower. Because if not, they're going to take you out. Pete Jenkins, who I've worked with for a long time, and he's coached and mentored, good Lord, I think it's like 60 All-American defensive linemen. He coached in the NFL with Andy Reid in Philly. He always thinks that a high-cut defensive tackle is more susceptible to injury, leg-wise, shoulder-wise. Because you know what? They can sort of turn you and then twist you, and you fall on your shoulder, or they sort of take you out lower body-wise. He might be right on that. And Brian's had, guess what? Knee and shoulder injuries.
Yeah.
So for Brian, it's not the athleticism. It's sort of how he's built.
Yeah.
He's going to have, now, are there exceptions to the rule? Always is. Always an exception to the rule.
Right.
I've been around 6'5" defensive tackles, but they're not high cut.
Yep.
I mean, they huge from the waist up, not from the waist down.
Right.
So Chris Jones is one of them. I got to talk to Chris about this. Chris came out of Mississippi State.
Right.
And now he's an unbelievable player with Kansas City Chiefs. You look at Chris is as high cut a defensive lineman as you'll see.
Yeah.
But he told me, took me 2 years. 2 years to learn how to play this game, being able to get off that line and not have these experienced offensive linemen sort of move you around. Yeah. The other guy is DeForest Buckner from Oregon, who's a first-round pick of the San Francisco 49ers. They didn't want to pay him, so he gets traded for a first-round pick to the Colts. He's almost 6'7". So he told me that he developed this crab technique. And if you watch him, he gets down real low, almost like, you know how a crab runs? Well, he gets down real low because he said, man, when I get out of that stance, they would tag me because he's got so much legs.
Yeah.
Those guys have defeated it. But a lot of people, what about Jeffrey Simmons or Fletcher Cox? Look at those guys, how they built. They all upper body guys. Man, and that way, when I get off that line of scrimmage, I got you, and then I can swing you. But if you all legs, it's different. So from a technique standpoint, and Bobby and I had that talk long before, they got picked. So he understood that. And I knew a couple of Brian's coaches at Clemson, and they brought it out also that that's going to be a learning process for him as a player. I had him ranked 31st, so I thought he'd get into round one, and it was almost 31st into that. But there's some technical skills here. If you thinking he's just going to come in and make an immediate impact, that's not the case. Yeah. That's a little bit of a learning curve, TJ, with that. And some of it is not his fault. Okay. Because, only thing I can do as a college player is do what the coaches and the scheme wants me to do. Right. That's the only thing I can do. I can't play freelance. Okay. And so with Brian, it's a learning curve that he's going to have to get through. But I do believe in that Pete Jenkins line that you are susceptible more to injuries because of the way you are built. And I just remember in talking to Chris, they have a seminar every year in Dallas where Jenkins will bring, I don't know, it's over 100 defensive linemen there. And he brought up to me, it was toward the end of his second year before it finally started to click for him, because he said, I was getting off that line real high, and man, those guys were moving me, because you got momentum and you high cut. And so it's not like I can jam him today and move people out of the way. So it's a little bit of a technical thing with Brzee. I think he's got a chance to be a good player, but I'll be honest with you. I think he may be better off at end than at tackle.
Really?
Because I love a lengthy, leggy defensive end.
Yeah.
Where your long legs come into play is me getting around that offensive tackle who's trying to square up on me. And if I got the wheels, I can get around you or cut you inside. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where he lines up. But I'm willing to tell you, I bet the Saints put him not directly all the time at defensive tackle. They put him a little bit outside.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. I mean, I seen like a couple plays at Clemson. They did put him on the outside.
Yes.
I mean, he was very disruptive. So that definitely might be a part of the game plan. But Mike, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. You talk about Brian Brzee coming off shoulder and knee injury. The Saints a couple of years ago drafted Peyton Turner, dealt with some ACL injuries. Same thing with Davenport. Is that a level of should that be a level of concern? The fact that the New Orleans Saints, they've been trying to find somebody to be opposite of Cam Jordan, to be the Robert Mathis to his Dwight Freeney, so to speak. Is that a level of concern, drafting guys who are pretty good, athletic, but have that history of being injured from time to time?
Listen, it's tough to find the pristine player.
Right.
Everybody wants that guy who's never hurt. What? Find me that dude. Okay. It is a collision sport.
Right.
Okay. If you just played high school football or you played in your backyard, you might not get it.
Right.
But you play in major college football, you're gonna have some time that you're gonna be down with an injury.
Yeah.
For that, I gotta rely on my medical staff. They have to tell me, is this injury gonna show up again and again and again? Yeah. Or is he passing a physical? And how did he get hurt? Does he have a past history of being down for a long period of time? Yeah. Brian went through his entire high school career, didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Okay. But then, he hurts the knee, has off-season surgery on his shoulder. He went through a difficult time, certainly with his sister. And you can see how that can distract someone. You mentally are going to be distracted. I don't care who you are. You can say, oh, it would never distract me. Okay, you lying. I put you on a lie detector machine. Right. You busting the circuits out. So it does matter.
Right.
Is it a concern for me? Yes, always is. But it's the type injury that you have, and do you have a long history of it? And then when you come back, if it's a 4 or 6 week injury, does it take you 8 to 10 weeks to come back?
Yeah,
we've seen that. That I'm telling you, TJ, that bothers me more than anything.
Yeah,
okay,
me too.
I'm supposed to be out 4 weeks. Now it takes him 7 weeks. But if we live in a society today, they always want to blame it on the medical staff. Oh, it's the doctor, it's the trainer. No, it's you. Okay? Are you mentally and physically tough enough to play through that? Right. Now, today, a lot of times you're being told as a professional athlete, hey, you're not 100%. Don't go out there and play. That's one of the biggest changes that's happened with me, in the last over 30 years. You got a lot of players back then. They'd have played with any type of injury. Hey, I want to get a deal. Right. But they're being told, don't go back unless you're 100% healthy, which sometimes is difficult because after the first practice, you ain't never 100% healthy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was thinking about when you mentioned players playing through anything, just remind me of that Ronnie Lott, like Ronnie Lott goes to the locker room and tells him to amputate his finger so he can get back into the game. But, it was a level of passion back then. Guys, willing to, battle through it.
we have to adjust.
Yeah.
If you're a casual football fan, TJ,
Right.
or if you covering in the media, that it is a different world today.
Right.
Being able to come back. But that for me is always something that's always sort of in the back of my mind of a player who consistently, if it's 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and then it becomes 7, 8 weeks, and the 8 weeks become 10 weeks.
Yeah. That is concerning. You know, like you want to see those players on the field. Like you want them to be healthy, of course.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, you want them to be available. And I think sometimes, you know, they try to make sure they're not playing through anything. Or I got to wait for my body to be 100%. But like you alluded to, probably not going to happen. You know, you're playing football, you're playing a contact sport. You're never going to feel 100%. You know, I mean, that's just the way that it goes. You will hope that, you know, they think about that and be able to battle through it. But hopefully we don't have these levels of concern going into 2023. But let's talk about Isaiah Foskey, the edge rusher out of Notre Dame. A little bit of a different type of defensive end than I've seen in years past when it comes to the Saints. It seems like, you know, the Saints, you know, they go after those guys that are, you know, long wingspan, tall guys like the Davenports, like the Turners. He's more of like a hybrid guy, right? He's the guy that can fly around. He's the guy that can force the fumble. He's the guy that can track down some of these athletic quarterbacks, something that the Saints have had issues in the past doing. When you look at Foskey and you look at the tape, what does the tape tell you about this guy, and what type of player do the New Orleans Saints have in Foskey?
Well, with him, he's played all over. He's played as a 4-3 defensive end. He's actually played as a 4-3 stand-up defensive end. He's played as a 3-4 outside linebacker, standing up. He runs the field extremely well. He's got a good what I call a press and then counter. You know, when the offensive tackle's coming at him, that ability to press that first arm out and then swing around him, he does that really well.
Yeah, he does.
Great instincts to the football. He can run the field well. Thing that sticks out to me, well, two things, other than his athleticism and his want to. He got a lot of want to. He doesn't give a play. Is that he played on a defense that did not have one other defensive player picked in this draft class.
Wow.
Not one.
Wow.
Zero. And secondly, if I ask even a really guy that keeps up with college football, name me another player at Notre Dame today. Most people would say, let me think about that. Okay, name me another defensive player at Notre Dame. So he's the only one on the defensive side that was drafted. Most people couldn't tell you the second player. Every time I played against Notre Dame, if I'm an offensive coach, you know what? That guy, I got to make sure he's blocked because I know Foskey's making a play. It doesn't fit as a pass rusher or his plays against the run. So I like him, and I think he can be an immediate impact player in a position that they sort of created last year with Caden Ellis.
Right.
That Ryan was looking for to get a better pass rush early on in the season. And they put Caden outside, and he excelled in that.
Right.
All I know is Foskey's a faster player than Caden, and he's quicker.
Yeah.
Fill that role, and also I can move him around. If I'm playing Notre Dame, and I'll give Marcus Freeman great credit here. He knew if I just put him at right defensive end or left defensive end, man, I'm going to figure out a way to block him. I don't care if I got a combo block him or not. I'm going to figure it out. But he kept moving him. So you didn't really know is that I can move him around, and especially in obvious pass rush situations where he can really help me to get a pass rush, and he runs the field well. And does he physically needs to get stronger? Yeah, but that sometimes – that's going to come with maturity as you get a little bit older and work with the weights a lot more. But, man, he's a good player. TJ, a really good player. And he went a little bit earlier than I thought because I had him probably, I think it was 5 picks later, but it was in that range.
Right.
I knew that having watched him, that guy can play. No, because, you know, when you're watching Notre Dame defensively, he's the guy making plays. Play in, play out, game in, game out. And my focus was to block him. And he was still making plays.
Yep. That's a plus. Like when you know the game plan is to try to neutralize a guy and you still can't do it, that's a testament to that guy's greatness and how good that player is. You know, I think about like his ability to force fumbles. He had 6 forced fumbles. I was saying it kind of remind me of like with DeMarcus Ware. Like DeMarcus Ware didn't always get the quarterback on the ground, but he had this knack about sticking his arm out and knocking the ball out of the quarterback's hands, and he made like a career out of that. And it kind of reminds me of that. Now DeMarcus Ware to me was a little bit stronger, but I do see some similar things that Foskey does that DeMarcus Ware does. Not necessarily all the things, but that's one thing in particular I know that DeMarcus Ware would do, and that was always a pain. Like, you know, like you think that you got him, and all of a sudden he just sticks his arm out and it's a forced fumble. But I like that about Foskey.
Yeah, one of the things, like when we have our camps here, if it's at Louisiana Line Camp or if it's the kind of the Dallas deal where they're teaching veteran defensive linemen, one of the things is being taught is trying to figure out when that quarterback is going back to throw, the time that you know, because some of these guys, man, they got a grip on the ball, but it's to try to hit them here where the ball comes out. And so that's being taught today.
Right.
And you see with Foskey, he's done a good job with that. The other thing that's being taught too today is if a defensive tackle, he kind of gets penetration and he kind of stands up that quarterback. Okay, your first thought is what? I got to get away from that guy. I slap at the ball.
Right. Good point.
So today, people don't realize the technical part of the game that a lot of these guys work on so much. And I remember the first guy that really actually came up with that, and he actually learned it from a very, very young Pete Jenkins helping the Giants, Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence, sometimes, he wanted to kind of demolish you. But on other times, he wanted to force that ball out of your hands. Before, you just wanted to make the sack or make the tackle. LT was different. His deal was, man, if I can get that turnover, I can really help my offense out. And then Ricky Jackson sort of learned a little bit of that from LT. And Rick, if you look at Ricky's stats, when he retired, he had more forced fumbles than anybody in the history of the National Football League at that time. And LT was right there. So it is all about trying to create a turnover. But today, it's actually being taught about trying to disrupt the throw and trying to get into here. Because you know what? If you hit them high, that flag's coming out. But if there's nothing about hitting them in the arm,
right?
Okay, Brock Purdy got hurt with that situation. And, I feel bad for Brock, but it's part of the game.
Yep.
Okay, you can't legislate where you hitting them in the arms and hands. And the other thing, too, is that stand-up deal where, I'm moving back or I'm standing up and I'm trying to get the ball out. And, my concentration is just to get it out. And that defensive guy comes in and he pops it out of there. So there is a lot of technical part to that. Foskey, I'm not saying he's going to be a starter right away, but he will contribute quite a bit in the role Caden Ellis played and in also certain down and distance situations as a pass rusher. And I want that, breaks the football pipe. That's the way I look at it. Pressure breaks the pipe. And if you can get it, you can get it. And I think Foskey is going to have a pretty quick impact on this team in filling a couple different roles.
Yeah. And they need it. The fact that, he is so versatile, I think that indeed is a plus. And, Mike, you mentioned him not being a starter right away. I mean, there's several people that I've spoken with that agree with that, but doesn't mean that, that you're not a starter, doesn't mean you can't make an impact. So I think that he definitely can. And out of all the players that the Saints drafted, to be honest, this is the guy that I'm looking forward to seeing the most, because I mean, it's kind of different. It's kind of a different field than what the Saints are normally going after. So I want to see how he's going to be able to contribute to the defense and what type of impact he's going to have. But let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about the running back position. The Saints went from, like, last year, you basically had Alvin Kamara and everybody else. Like, no disrespect to Mark Ingram, but he wasn't the Mark Ingram that we all fell in love with. David Johnson was here. Yeah, Benjamin, Latavius Murray. It was a revolving door a little bit, and it involved a lot of injuries. But now you have the New Orleans Saints. It seemed like they're really focused on the running back position in this offseason. You got Alvin Kamara, of course, but you also added Jamal Williams from the Detroit Lions, who led the NFL in rushing touchdowns. And you also have Kendre Miller, the running back out of TCU, who ran really hard, had a really good, solid season. Unfortunately, he got hurt in that college football semifinal game versus Michigan, couldn't play in the national championship. But he does come with a lot of confidence. He basically said he's not coming here to be a number 2. He wants to be a number 1. Some people kind of, shrugged it off, but it shows the confidence that he has. Mike, when you look at Kendre Miller and his body of work, what do you think he brings to the New Orleans Saints? And also, I didn't see many much pass catching in college. Can he add that to his game possibly?
Yeah, this was during the summer. I know Sonny pretty well, Sonny Dykes. Mm-hmm. Sonny started his head coaching career at Louisiana Tech.
Right.
We've sort of kept in touch. And when Zach Evans left, transfer portal, go to Ole Miss, my thing is, hey, coach, what you got? And he said, man, Mike, I got a guy here. He doesn't have a lot of mileage on him, but he's a really good back. And there's Kendre Miller. He said he's going to have to carry us sometimes this year, because they had a little bit of injury issue and uncertainty at quarterback. Now, it's hard to believe because Max Duggan played so well, but you didn't know about Max Duggan entering the season. He wasn't supposed to be the guy, but an injury opened the door for him. And what you see with is a very physical runner. My comp for him would be Aaron Jones with the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
He's sort of built exactly like Aaron, and very physical guy. He's got a really big upper body, so he can fight through, but he turns power into speed. In essence, he gets out into the open field, man, that power turns into speed, and he's made a ton of big runs. And he actually, as Sonny said, he carried this team at different times last year for TCU, and they were certainly different without it. Listen, I'm not saying that they could have made it competitive against Georgia. I don't think anybody could have. Georgia was just so good. But Kendre was a big part of their offense. Also, the fact, too, he didn't catch a lot of passes. That wasn't where the offense was designed. But when he did, he caught it out front. Hey, I want to see that. I want to see you catch it with this, not up against here.
Right.
And Kendre could catch the ball. So he's got power. He turns power into speed. He does a solid job as a pass protector, too, which is important. I don't want my quarterback getting demolished because he missed the block.
Yeah.
He plays with a lot of confidence. Okay. This is a good and a bad part of him, and it's all the same part. He refuses to go down. He had 6 fumbles last year. 6. Right. Okay, so what that's telling me is, he's fighting. I want to get an extra couple yards out of it, and somebody comes, and what we talked about with Foskey, from behind, and they rip it out.
Yeah.
And so he's got to be careful that sometimes, fight to fight another day. You can't let that ball get ripped out of you. But that's really the only negative with him, other than he had the MCL surgery. Because I think had that surgery not happened, he would have been picked higher.
Yeah, I agree.
Would have been picked higher, but you didn't know exactly when. And he was limited in the little OTAs or whatever for the rookies. You know, he was out there running.
Right.
But he did tell us when he got selected that he was starting to run and that he was really close. So he's a very talented runner, a physical runner. And if you've watched Aaron Jones with the Packers, that's what you have with Kendra Miller. They almost built the exact same, almost exactly the same. And he catches the ball pretty well. And your point you brought up is true. He didn't catch a lot of passes.
Yeah.
But when he did, he caught it smooth. And, man, he could whirl around. And that first guy never really tackled him. He just tried to run over him. And then he's trying to run past everybody. So he's the guy I really liked. And, again, had it not been for the MCL injury, the Saints would have never got him in round 3. Never.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, if you watched him at TCU all last season, you know that there was nothing about his game that would warrant him being a 3rd-round draft pick. I mean, no way. So that MCL injury, you know, did cost him, but it's a fortunate thing for the New Orleans Saints because they have a running back that is a quality running back and a guy that can get better as he develops. But, you know, Mike, I think about 2017, you know, when the New Orleans Saints had, you know, Mark Ingram in his prime. You had a young Alvin Kamara fresh out of the University of Tennessee. And you had the veteran, legendary running back, Adrian Peterson. And the biggest issue was, how do I get all 3 of these guys on the field? When you look at Kamara, you look at Williams, and now you look at Miller, can the New Orleans Saints get these guys on the field? Can they coexist with this 3-headed monster they have in the backfield?
I'm never worried about having too much. I'm always worried about having not enough. Man, if I got too many, man, I'm right where I want to be.
Right.
And people don't like to talk about it, but it is real. There is an injury factor in this world.
Yeah.
And you're going to get nicked up and you're going to get hurt. Now, you're getting hit as a running back. And so that always sort of works itself out. It really does. I think back then, Sean really knew how good Kamara was.
Yeah.
But he had made some promises to Adrian that, hey, listen, you're going to be a big part of our offense. And that didn't work because Kamara came to the scene so fast. So I think that was more the issue than trying to figure out how the 3 of them would work together. And you saw Adrian was not quite the same Adrian Peterson, okay?
Right.
And we saw it when he went somewhere else. No, I'm never worried about not having all that talent. I'm never worried about that. I'm always worried about it, you know, if I don't have enough or the injury factor. Because somewhere down the line, and with the Saints, the most likely suspension of Kamara, now you don't have that issue. Most likely, you know, the first part of the season. And if you're going to get suspended, suspend me early. I want him for late in the year. I don't want that where he plays 6 or 8 games and then they come in with the suspension. If you're going to suspend him, do it early and get it over with, you know, so that way I can deal with it and I deal with a suspension like I would deal with an injury. Okay? The exact same way. There's nothing I can do about it if I'm a team. Nothing I can do about it. So having a Jamal Williams who is used to being part of a 2 kind of tone deal.
Yeah.
Because look back at Green Bay, he split time with Aaron Jones. When you look back at Detroit, he split time with DeAndre Swift.
Yep.
Used to that. That's fine.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's a minor issue. And I say minor, it's not even that. You know, because I know that injuries and things out of my control will happen, and I need all 3.
Yeah.
And need to put the ball better. If that's anything that bothers me today is the fact you couldn't run it last year when you needed to and you had to. And that goes back to offensive line play, and you didn't have that second option at running back. You really Alvin, okay, but Alvin can't run if he can take a team picture of the other team's defense coming at him.
Right.
We're getting no push up front. People don't want to talk about it. Oh, we got a first round pick here. We got a first round pick there. You do, but did they play like a top unit with a first pick? No, I think last year Ramchak has always been a really good player. Mm-hmm. But last year he wasn't as good as we've seen him in other years. He was not. Andrus Pete, he's going to get hurt somewhere down the line. Mm-hmm. I like Eric McCoy. I think he's a good center in this league. And Cesar Ruiz, was he better? Yeah, but how much better? And then the other tackle, you're playing with James Hurst, or you're playing with Trevor, and then Trevor gets hurt. So you got to go with Hurst, and you got injuries every year. Yep. The most important pick in this draft class may well be Nick Saldiveri.
Yep.
And why? Yep. He may get an early call. Hey, kid, you got to get in there. And I got to see him play a lot at Old Dominion. Mm-hmm. He was 73rd on my draft board.
Yeah.
So I was surprised. Round 3 ends, he's still there. Yeah. And so Deuce and I were talking about it, that, name a guy there. And I was like, man, Saldiveri from Old Dominion. Well, sure enough, the Saints straight up, and they picked Nick with the first pick in round 4. Mm-hmm. Played mostly right tackle. He started one game at right guard, but I think he's better off kicked inside and at the right guard spot. What I like to see in alignment is his ability to bend at the knees, not at the body balance, control, square, hand placement. Now, where he's going to have to get better is hand placement as a pass protector, because he ain't never seen guys like he's going to see rushing the quarterback and at this level. He's never played against guys like that.
Yeah.
But as a run blocker, you see his physicality. You see his ability to leverage, get low, move people off the line of scrimmage, gets a nice push off the snap. And I got a feeling he's going to play early, one way or another, because of either injury or something's going to happen. You're going to have to play Nick. The funny thing is he goes to the Senior Bowl, and Jim Nagy tells me the story. He goes to the Senior Bowl. He had played right tackle, so he practiced the first day at right tackle. Then they moved him to guard. They wanted to show everybody his versatility. He got his hand up in the air. Hey, I want to play some center. Now, he had never played center in his life. Never. No. And so they put him at center. You know what? He took to it really well.
Yeah.
But it's different. It's really different playing center than playing guard and tackle. So you got some versatility. You got some want to. He's a very focused young man. And the NFL will not overwhelm him. Will not.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good thing when you have an offensive lineman that is that versatile. And like you say, if you've been looking at the New Orleans Saints throughout the last couple of years, I mean, the injuries have come on the offensive line. I mean, so to add a guy like Saldiveri in here, I think that it would be a great fit. And like you say, he's a very smart player. And I do think that, it's an upgrade. I think that you look at with Andrus Pete, he plays from time to time, but he's going to miss at least 6 games, So to have a young guy that can come in, that can plug and play, and that can and go in there and give you some production is a plus. I do want to ask you about Jake Hayden out of Fresno State. Hayner is a guy who had 72% completion percentage. He had 20 touchdowns, 3 picks last year. People look at his size. I was talking about this before you got on. People talk about his size. They talk about his accuracy, and they're comparing him to Drew Brees. What are your thoughts on Hayner? He's a guy, once again, I mean, he can put the ball where he needs to be. But, do you look at him as a possible starter? Not for the Saints, but if you were like a team, like maybe 3-4 years down the line, do you see Hayner as a starting quarterback?
He's got a possibility. He's got a couple traits I can't teach and no one else can.
Yeah.
He's accuracy skills. He got really good touch on the short intermediate throws of the game. The other thing is he's a quick processor. Sometimes guys come into this league and they think it's like college football. And man, they throw everything at you to confuse you.
Right.
So you got to process information so fast. He's got. Does he have a super strong arm? No, he doesn't. Does his deep ball sort of hang a little bit? Yes. It's obvious. And when you watch him, the deep balls sort of have a little bit of helium in it. It hangs up there. But he's a tough competitor. He's very focused. And I just listened to what Jeff Tefford said about him, his coach, who's coached a lot of good quarterbacks in college football.
Yep.
And talking about, I've never seen somebody more driven and more focused.
All right.
Does he have all the physical tools? No, he doesn't. But you know what? Who was the first pick in the draft?
Bryce Young.
Okay. How big is Bryce? Okay.
Depends on who you talk to, Mike. He might be 5'9" today.
I'm as big a Bryce Young fan as that can be. I don't like that he's with the Panthers, but I'm a big Bryce Young fan because I know what he did. People, he's overhyped because he's at Alabama. No, you don't understand. Get it through your head. He's not on that Alabama team last year. They're not going to no Sugar Bowl. They're not winning double-digit games.
Mm-hmm.
He bailed them out time after time. And what happened in the 2 losses? LSU, he's watching as Alabama's defense, they gave up the touchdown and the 2-point conversion to LSU. Against Tennessee, he was watching as that defense gave up a field goal late for Tennessee to win it. So, okay, I get it. You don't like his size. You don't like Alabama, but you better like the guy because he can make a lot of plays. And he's a very focused guy, just like Haener. It's quick processing. Both of them, you can tell. They're throwing the ball before the guy gets into and out of a cut and a break. That's totally different. Okay, Sean fell in love with Ian Book, okay? And for whatever reasons, good or bad.
Right.
But Ian didn't have that type sense to get the ball out before the cut and the break.
Right.
And I think he overprocessed things in his head. I think he saw some things that weren't really there, and he was trying to make a play when there wasn't that play to be made. Man, you watch Haener. He got kind of screwed at Washington because he should have been the starter there. And a lot of people who covered Washington back then thought, and I'm talking about the Washington Huskies, thought that he should have been the starter instead of Jake Browning. But the coaching staff decided to go with Jake. Okay, and he got, I understand it, I'm out of here. That's how y'all going to do me? I'm out. Now, he left before the transfer portal stuff got involved. He had to sit out a year to go to Fresno State. And so I think, sometimes God puts you in the right place.
Yep.
He put him there with Jeff Tedford, who's one of the best quarterback coaches in college football. He's no young pop. Jeff been doing this longer than me. So, I think it's a good pick. And I think you're going to see very quickly with him how he handles a team. He is the general out on the field. He takes charge, and he knows it. He's a gym rat. He loves the game. And so can he be a starter one day? We'll see. But I will say this. I think he'll be a really good backup.
Yeah.
I think he'll be a good backup. And those numbers don't lie. Again, I'll throw it just like I threw it about Foskey. Tell me another player from Fresno State.
I can't tell you.
It's a discussion. No, he's carting that team on his back.
Yep.
And he's making it work. And even when he gets off the bad starts, if you look back at the championship game, man, for a half, he was struggling.
Right.
He was a little off on his throws. He had a couple drops. They couldn't move the ball well. They got a lot of pressure on him. All of a sudden, the second half, man, it clicked. And then Jake he got hot. And you could see that, man, they were like, here we go again. Here we go. Because, boy, when he gets in that groove, he can throw it well. So you got to look past the fact that he's probably less than 6 foot tall. He's probably more 5'11" and 3/4, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
But I can't put him on a rack and stretch him, but and I can't teach him to be accurate. I can't teach him to set his feet. And that's the one thing I watch with quarterbacks today, how they can set their feet and throw on balance. You got guys that were picked in the first and second round. They never set their feet and throw on balance. Never.
Right.
And, man, God bless him with so much talent. He didn't have to. He was tippy-toe throwing, and he's up on his toes throwing it. The ball sailing 65, 70 yards downfield. Come on. Ain't a lot of men in this world can do that.
Right.
But it does affect your accuracy. But he knows how to play to his strength, TJ. And I think that part, he understands his strong points and his limitations, and he finds that working spot.
Yeah.
He finds it.
Yeah, I like what I see in him. You know, I think he has like some really good qualities. Like I said, the jury is out if he ever is going to be a starting quarterback, but I definitely can see him, you know, carving out a niche, being a backup quarterback. I mentioned this too. Like, you know, people will look at the backup quarterbacks, but you got some backup quarterbacks that have made a career out of doing that, coming into the game and providing a spark. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick is one of them. Think about the McCown brothers. You think about Chase Daniel. You think about, you know, some of these other backup quarterbacks throughout history. So, I mean, if it doesn't pan out as a starter, I think there's always going to be a place for him because of the qualities that he possessed as a quarterback. My final question for you, speaking of Fresno State and speaking of quarterbacks, the Saints' new quarterback, Derek Carr, you know, coming to the New Orleans Saints, 3-year deal, $150 million. Comes in with a lot of cachet. Some people feel like it was just a bad situation that he was in. He's much better than he ever performed with the Vegas or Oakland Raiders. Now he comes together with his former coach, the guy who drafted him back in 2014. But I have to ask about Dennis Allen and Derek Carr. Is this like one of the final? I guess, like, is this like the moment in which is the deciding factor, like, are these guys really the guys that we need to take us to the next level? Is Carr good enough to get over that hump? People have him as average. He thinks that he's in that elite category. Dennis Allen, is he more coordinated than coach? Is this the year that defines that and decides that for Saints fans and NFL fans?
The signing of Derek Carr is Dennis Allen's defining moment, either one way or another.
Right.
Because we know who's in charge of that defense. Okay. It's okay. If something goes wrong, it's his responsibility because this is his baby. He's already told, I call the defensive signals, not giving that up. You can bring in Joe Woods. You can bring in Todd Grantham. It's still his baby.
Right.
Offensively, though, the moment is now the decision to go after Derek, not to pursue Lamar Jackson, and say, I know Derek because I'm familiar with him. I've seen his body of work. He's still a young man in this business at quarterback. No matter what, you can, man, listen, everybody wants Social Security plans on quarterback. Okay. It's the same thing with Hendon Hooker. Oh, he's 25 years old. He can't play 15 years. What? Man, give me 7 or 8. I'm not worried about 10 to 15. So can he give you that period of time? We'll see. But he's a strong arm quarterback. He's got some zip on his throws. He's had more fourth quarter comeback wins than any other quarterback currently in the NFL.
Right.
So that does tell you something. It tells you the Las Vegas Raiders defense is lousy, you know, and so having to come back every time because their defense has given up so many points.
Right.
And I think the key to this season is what I told you a year ago. Offensive line play, health of Michael Thomas.
Right.
Michael Thomas out on the field, difference. Now, you can dislike him and everything else. That guy is a next level receiver when he's healthy. Now, I use the word when he's healthy.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got bad luck. And then sometimes you got injuries that's difficult to come back from. Sometimes you maybe make a decision that you should have made earlier. The key to this season does revolve around Derek. But can they run the ball? Can the offensive line play better up front? And also, that's part of protection. Michael Thomas comes down to that. But Derek Carr is an upgrade over anything you have on this roster at quarterback. He's an upgrade.
Yeah. His
body of work tells you that. He's not been no backup quarterback anywhere. He's been a starting quarterback in this league. So when you look at it, and it didn't cost you, other than money, it didn't cost you anything to get him.
Yeah.
And basically, you got him on a 2-year deal, and if it works out in 2 years, you can make it a third. But I think it's the defining moment for Dennis Allen, because that offense is not his forte. Richie Pettibone told me this years ago. Richie's from New Orleans. Richie was a defensive coordinator with the then Washington Redskins. Joe Gibbs was head coach.
Okay.
That's how many times did Joe get involved in team meetings. So Mikey said, I coached with him for quite some time. He said, I'm talking about double-digit years. I saw him twice in meetings. He's like, hey, I'm taking care of the offense, Richie. You take care of the defense. Okay. But Joe got most of the ink, he was Joe Gibbs, great coach. I think he's the most underrated big-time coach of my lifetime as a professional coach. You win 3 Super Bowls and you win it with 3 different quarterbacks? What? Man, TJ, I ain't living. Now, you maybe got a shot, but I'm not living long enough to see it happen again with that. So I think with Derek, he gives you a fighting chance. And also, too, you always got to throw this in there. In an uncertain NFC South at quarterback, where, you got Baker Mayfield, in Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, I don't think it's going to be long before Bryce becomes the guy. Because I can agree a little bit with Andy Dalton, but it's eventually going to be Bryce.
Yeah.
Every rookie goes through that rookie curve. That, man, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
But it's not long before he starts to pick it up. But it's overwhelming at first, the NFL. I know Peyton always tells me this at his camps. Man, and I just want somebody to break my interception record. Because Peyton struggled too. And then you got in Atlanta a kind of a strange situation where last year I had Kenny Pickett. He was my only first-round pick quarterback. But my number 1 guy was Desmond Ridder. We talked about it on the show. I thought Desmond was the 2 guy clear cut. He was much better than Malik Willis and some of this other stuff I was hearing. And people were trying to push Malik into that. But how much better is he going to be? Because really, he got a little taste of NFL action late last year. But you can see what Atlanta's doing. They're insulating him. Okay? They're insulating him with Bijan Robinson, a running game, that sort of thing. I get that. I would do it too if I was the Falcons.
Right.
There's a lot of uncertainty. The one guy I know about, Derek Carr. I know about Derek. I can't tell you. Well, I could tell you about Baker Mayfield. I'm not sure you want to hear it. But but I don't know how good Desmond Ridder is going to be this year.
Yeah.
Bryce, like most rookie quarterbacks, there is a learning curve to the NFL, and he could struggle early on. Derek gives me experience. Derek gives me a guy that's been there, done that, and the guys respect him. Okay? They know it's not all his fault what happened in Las Vegas. They know whatever's going on there ain't good. And poor Jimmy Garoppolo got to play behind that offensive line. Jimmy brittle. He's going to be even more brittle. I have to play behind those 5 offensive linemen that the Raiders got. So they've upgraded there. I think overall, I always look at it this way. Are you a better team today than you were at the end of last year? Because not all teams get better. That's a myth. Tell me that the Bucs are better today than they were when the season ended. You can't. You don't have. There's no way you
Right.
can give me that the Washington Commanders are better today. Now you're better at ownership. You couldn't be any worse. But are you better today? Are the Vikings a better team today than they were when the season ended? You just traded away one of your best defensive players for a song and a dance. You
Right.
didn't get nothing for Zadavius, nothing for him. So there's a big myth that all teams get better in the offseason. That's not true. But you can say today, the Saints are a better team today than they were when the season ended because of the fact you got better at quarterback. You still don't know about Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
I think defensively, the defensive tackle position, I think you lost a good player in David Onyemata. I'm gonna be honest. I like David a lot.
Fair enough.
But I think there are some pieces there if you can especially have a healthy Marshawn Lattimore for a full year. Man, you think about playing all those games without Lattimore take out one side of the field. He's that good of a player. And you have more communication at safety, okay, because those guys have played together now for a full season.
Right.
But I think you're a better team today with the addition of Derek Carr, Jamal Williams, and hopefully with the development of Jawan Johnson at tight end, and just hopefully the good health of Foster Morrow, you better at tight end today.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely upgraded. They did some things they needed to do offensively in order for them to be more effective. The addition of Derek Carr definitely adds a spark to that offensive room. I think it also added, some guys' willingness to want to negotiate, also even to come to New Orleans. I think about Brian Edwards, a guy that played with him. Like you mentioned, Foster Morrow. I think that played a huge role. And, also have some other guys as well. So guys want to be – go ahead.
Because, man – it is part of his resume. Derek Carr missed very few games in the NFL. He's been relatively healthy. But and you always think about it, if something goes down, do you have an experienced guy that could come in and handle things?
Yep.
Okay, the false deal was, they did Jameis wrong last year, and he's going to leave and go somewhere else. Well, if they did you wrong, you came back.
Yeah.
Okay? So,
good point.
That part of bringing back an experienced former starter who was willing to say, okay, yeah, I'll do this for another year, gives you that option. I talked to Jimmy Johnson. This was about a year ago. We had him on Sports Talk and asked him, what would you overpay for if you were a coach? And he said, it's never changed since I've stopped coaching. I would overpay for a starting quarterback, a backup quarterback, pass rusher. He said, I would not overpay for anything else.
Wow. Because
he said, you one step away from that backup being your starter. You convinced Jameis that this was the spot, the best spot for him in 2023. You convinced him. So it wasn't like, oh, man, y'all did me wrong, because if you did him wrong, he could have maybe went somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so the big question mark is that pass rusher. Can you keep Peyton Turner on the field? The problem is not talent. The problem is when you a healthy scratch, something's wrong.
Yes.
That bothers me more than anything when you a healthy scratch as a player. So can you get him to be a consistent contributor? Carl Granderson, we saw the move he made last year. I thought Carl had a good season for them in defensive end, and you add Foskey to the table. Okay, you maybe really helped yourself there at that pass rush spot. The one area you still looking for, and that would be a veteran linebacker. Now, I never have enough good players anywhere. I would love to add another receiver. I would love to add another linebacker. And maybe that receiver is James Washington, who they bringing in as we do this now. And I saw James at Oklahoma State. He's built like a running back. He's a tall cut guy, man. He got a lot of legs on him. Even though he's 5'11", man, he's no speedster by any stretch. He's not a guy that's going to run a sub 4.4 40-yard dash. He's a 4.5 guy in that range. But that is his acceleration to the ball in flight. He does that well. And these little short passes that he can catch, and because he's so built like a running back, he's able to get away from you, and then he takes off into the open field. Hopefully he's healthy. He had that foot injury last year that he really didn't get to play. But I think he could be a help for you. And, man, he wasn't a good player at Oklahoma State. He was a dominating guy there. You saw teams in the Big 12. They will rotate coverage to his side of the field. He wasn't beating one guy. He was beating two guys. He's a Litnikoff winner. So,
really good.
Hopefully he's healthy and they can come to terms with him. And I think he can help you. And where I think he'd be really good in the slot, because I got a small corner. And I think Washington's physicality would match up well in the slot.
Yeah. I think that watching him for the Steelers and things that he did at Oklahoma State, I mean, he definitely would be a huge addition to the New Orleans Saints. And I think they have a real strong chance of getting him. Like I said, I think the Derek Carr effect, it will get a lot of these free agent wide receivers more willingness to come to the New Orleans Saints, because they know that, regardless, they can get the football and he can put them in position to make plays. So one thing you can't say about Derek Carr, I mean, you look at the tight end position, you look at some of the receivers that he has, they all have really, really developed really well with him as the quarterback. So if they can add James Washington to it, to already a pretty decent wide receiver room, I think that indeed would be a plus.
PJ, another thing to bring up is we were talking about rookie receivers last year. Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave.
Yeah.
They got a year under their belt today.
Right.
They understand the NFL better.
Yep.
There's just so much you can do to get a guy stronger. Okay. And you look at the build of Olave and Rashid Shaheed, you can get them a little bit stronger, but you don't want to take away other things that they can do well.
Yep.
But it's just the knowledge of the game, knowing what to do. And I was shocked that we didn't see Rashid Shaheed at all during training camp. He was working out by himself. Okay, and all of a sudden they put him in a game. Man, it was like, wow, that guy is fast. No, he might not, be the anchor on your 4x400-meter relay team, but boy, is he fast with a helmet and pads on. And you saw
Do you
that.
think that was intentional, Mike? Well,
he was coming off the knee. He was coming off the knee injury. And maybe they knew what they had, but he wasn't healthy physically, back all the way. So it is what it is with it. I think Olave had a good season last year.
Right.
He showed as a route runner that his ability to get into and out of a cut and a break was smooth. He'd like to become a little bit more physical with catches. But he is what he is, and he's talented.
Yeah.
He is talented. Man, he's got some giddy up with him, too. So what I think sometimes we forget is you go to work for the first day in your new job. You don't know everything. You don't know everything after a week. You don't know everything after a month. You don't know everything after a year. But once you get it down, then you understand what your job is all around.
Yeah.
We don't put ourselves in their position. Just go out and play. You've been playing football since you were a kid. Okay. I get it, but it's not all the same. It's not all the same. And so for those guys to contribute like they did last year, and I thought both of them did a good job, I think they'll be even better this year. Now it's getting on the same page with rapport with Derek Carr.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at, LSU, a former LSU Tiger. I look at Justin Jefferson. Like Justin Jefferson's first year, you seen a lot of promise, but there were moments where, you know, you can see he was a rookie, you know, like there was, but that second year, that's when you really seen him start to like really take off and be one of the most dominant wide receivers. I think that Olave has some of those qualities. Like he has really good route running ability. He has that speed, and you know, like you said, as you start to develop, as you get acclimated to the offense in this matter, the game starts to slow down for you, and some of the things that you struggle with become a little bit more easier. And I want to see what Olave can do. I mean, he was 1,000-yard receiver last year. So the fact that you thought you were going to come into the season with Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and Chris Olave, and he went from being like maybe the 3 to the 1, and he was able to give you that level of production and be that number one guy that you need. I'm interested to see what year 2 is going to do. And also Rashid Shaheed, that speed, that ability. I bet when they gave him that jet sweep for the Cincinnati Bengals game and he scored for the first time, he was like, man, this is about the easiest thing ever, right? So, and then, of course, like you had a couple more big plays, but, he's a guy that, I want to see as well. A lot of Saints fans that watch this podcast, Mike, they want him to be a part of that rotation, maybe being that number 3 receiver or something like that the Saints may need. I mean, I don't know about that for sure, but he definitely is a very talented guy, and I want to see what both of these guys can be able to do because they're so young and they're extremely talented.
Yeah, what you about TJ agree. The other thing too is we also got to remember Jawan Johnson was playing receiver and then he got kicked inside to be a flex tight end.
Right.
So there is some cross there. Okay, you got to understand your position a little bit better. And so you got 3 guys in Jawan, and Chris Olave, and Rashid Shaheed, young players, and they are more acumened to the NFL.
Yep.
Now is getting on the same page with Derek Carr. That is the other part of it because Derek has got to, one, he's got to trust you, that he knows where you at when you're out on the field. And secondly, every guy kind of comes into and out of a cut and a break a little bit different. Everybody is working with these guys in the offseason to develop that rapport with them that is second nature for the quarterback.
Right.
But you can't change how to run a route. Okay? It's easier for Derek to change his throw than it is for the receiver to change his route running skills. Everybody runs it a little bit different. So, yeah, I can see the optimism and the way the schedule reads. Man, in all my years, this is like, a sent from above. You could not ask for a better schedule in your life.
Yes,
man,
right.
Thank you. Now, again, sometimes injuries, it's not about who you play, but when you play them. That is part of the NFL.
True.
But, man, the gunslinger quarterbacks, okay, you play Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor's really good. I mean, I'm a big fan of Trevor Lawrence. Kirk Cousins had your number. Now, you got to give it to him. For whatever reason, I don't care if it was in Washington or when he was in Minnesota, he's always sort of had your number. Yep. I don't know physically Matt Stafford, what type player he is today. Because, man, when you start to have those arm and shoulder injuries, that does take it away. But you playing a lot of rookie quarterbacks. You playing guys that their teams are no juggernauts by any stretch of the imagination. And I do believe schedule does matter. I mean, some people, that's from last year. Well, there's a lot of repeat in this world.
Yeah.
That's a lot of repeat of what. Look at the top teams in the top 10 who pick almost every year. Don't it look like, it's the same team? So don't tell me, the schedule don't mean anything. All I know is every year they got a lot of teams picking in the top 10 that were there the year before and the year
usual
before
suspects. That is the truth. You look at this schedule. I think they play Anthony Richardson's Colts. They play C.J. Stroud's Texans. Of course, you have Bryce Young. You got to play him twice. I mean, you got some young guys out there. Then you have some teams that are trying to figure it out also. So the Saints got to get it done. You know, I mentioned that also. They got to get it done. Like, you're not going to get another opportunity like this, you know, to be able to, you know, come back and make the postseason. It's been a while. Like, it's been 2 seasons since the Saints made the postseason, so we don't want it to be a third. And this is an opportunity for you to really go out there and do what you need to do in order for you to make the postseason. And based on like what you're looking in within the division, you have a strong possibility of winning this division, and that gives you a home game. And you know, you get yourself to the playoffs. I mean, who knows what happens? I mean, Mike, I'm looking around the NFC. You don't really see too many dominant quarterbacks. You just don't. Like, and everybody talk. Yeah, you look at Jalen Hurts. That's it. Who else? Everybody else, I feel like the Saints have the capability of knocking them off. So we'll see. We're definitely going to see. But Mike, thank you so much for being a part of the State of the Saints podcast. Really do appreciate it so much. Before you go, just let everybody know how they can get in touch with you, and also about you know, sports talk with you and Bobby Hebert.
Yeah, we on 4 to 8 virtually every night. Bobby's got some time off during the summer. So Steve Geller will be part of our third member of the team. And so, but we, you know, we sort of batted around, and, you know, LSU baseball's big, and boy, whew, there's a lot of sweating now after what happened against Mississippi State. But
right.
We sort of batted around a little bit with baseball, certainly, and it's big in this part with LSU baseball, and certainly LSU football, Tulane football, and what Woodley Fritz has done at Tulane's really been fantastic. Able to turn that program around, and certainly being on WWL, we the home of the Saints, so we give you Saints coverage every day. We talk NFL, we talk Saints, and that's the one great thing, TJ, and it helps you too. You can do podcasts and sports talk every day. The NFL is a feeding machine. Now, you only got a little time where there's nothing, but it gives you stuff every week, every day. And some move or maneuver or something you can talk about. So we enjoy kicking that around. And Steve and I were laughing about this. You know, sometimes, you know, with Bobby, you know, you got to play catch up. So, you know, sometimes I'll signal him, you know, hey, give me a slider, and then he throw me a high fastball way high, and so the ball go back to then you got to pick it up and everything. But we good with it. We work around it. We work around it pretty good. But it's man, we enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. It gives people an opportunity to interact with us either through text or call-ins, and you don't have to agree with everybody. That's why it's sports talk. You know, you don't have to agree with everybody. So you try to entertain, and you try to educate. You try to give a little bit of information maybe they didn't have. And but we living in some really good times when you think about you know, if you're in Louisiana and you see what's happened at Tulane, what's happening at LSU football wise. Hopefully the Saints can turn this around. Like, as you brought up, 2 straight years, no playoffs. But, you know, they're the more intriguing of the 3 teams. I know what I'm getting from LSU this year. I know what I think I'm getting from Tulane this year. What I'm not real sure of is about the Saints.
Right. Yeah. I mean, hopefully, like, this will be a good season. We mentioned the schedule. You know, schedule kind of working in your favor here. So hopefully they can put it all together. And as far as like WWL, I say this all the time, Mike. If it wasn't for WWL, I probably wouldn't have a career in broadcasting. I mean, I fell in love with broadcasting listening to WWL. Growing up in the 90s, you know, listening to the games, Saints games on the radio with Jim Henderson, the late great Hoagie Gajan. Like that's what made me fall in love with sports and just broadcasting in general, and just listening to you all every single day, the passion and the love that you all have talking about not just Saints football, but Louisiana sports in general. Definitely is something that, you know, that I admire and respect. So, and I also just thank you so much for, you know, being here today and giving us a little bit of your time. Every time we talk to you is always a pleasure, Mike.
Thank you, TJ. You're doing a great job. And so many people say, oh, I saw, when you going to do TJ's podcast again? Well, you know, sometimes it's a juggle of the ball for me. I got my hours ended for a little bit. So
a man of many hats. A man of many hats.
you know, I swore a couple years ago I would never do another full-time job in my life. I've been engineering, you know, for almost 29 years.
Right.
I said, that's it. I'm not doing no more. Man, a year of being not doing nothing at the house, and then I had other opportunities in the business world.
Right. And
then WWL comes with, man, you know, come on, you got to do this full time. And I'm like, I'm not sure. What the hell? Let's do it. A lot of fun. And WWL, when you talked about starting with you,
man.
Hap Glaudy getting me on Sports Talk in the mid 80s.
Mm.
And then, you know, Hap passed away. And then me doing it with Buddy D.
Yeah.
You know, him and I, you know, doing this, and now working with Bobby. And to think, you know, like Bobby and I, we a year apart, but Bobby grew up, you know, like about 15 minutes from my home.
Right.
On the Bayou. Now he lived south of the Intercoastal, so he went to South Lafourche, and I went to Central. But still, two guys from the Bayou to do it, man. It's on the biggest radio station east of the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's special, and I appreciate your comments very, very much. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mike Detier here on the State of the Saints podcast. And thank you all so much for tuning in, no matter where you are, wherever you may be. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, which is youtube.com. Search the State of the Saints podcast. And also, we have previous episodes that are available for you, that are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Anchor FM. Also, you can check out the Gumbo Pot Sports Podcast webpage, which is gumbopotsports.com. Got some articles that are going to be coming out later on today talking about Saints rookie minicamp. And also, I'm going to talk a little bit. I have a boxing article that I wrote about, my goodness, I know some people don't follow boxing, but a fight that happened this past weekend against Ishmael Bosaro and Rolly Romero left a real bad taste in my mouth. But you can catch articles like that on gumbopotsports.com. Make sure you subscribe. And also you can follow me on Twitter at TJAYJones8. Till next time, all I got to say is, who that?
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug. I'm good.